because in Adizes, our idea is that competitive advantage comes from the quality of your management team, because you and your competitors all face the same changes in the marketplace. And it's the management team that can most quickly adapt and deal with that change that moves ahead the fastest. And that how they adapt might be manifested in new innovation or in better cost structures or in people or whatever it is, but it's the management's team ability to do that that is the true competitive advantage. So you face the same internal changes as well, because what we see is as companies grow and develop and go through different stages, they face the same changes, the same challenges, the same problems, just as you have children, right? And you face similar problems with 2-year-olds, you face similar problems with 10-year-olds, and we all face the same challenges with teenagers. Right? And companies grow and develop the same way. And the management teams that can identify those problems, what are the normal ones, abnormal ones, and deal with those the fastest are the ones that move ahead the fastest. And so really what we're working on is how do you build that integration in a company? How do you integrate the management team? And we start with 3 levels. We start with CEO, senior management team, and the next level down, right, in bigger companies. And we work continuously on how do we integrate them? How do we get them together so that they're this hand? They're not like this, but they're this way. Right? And that's really the crux of what we do. It's not a quick fix. Right? We work with companies for at least a year, 2 years, longer, to make this transformation of this management team, extended management team really. And we've heard a couple of things about starting with a Syndag, so we do a diagnosis. And really the idea behind the diagnosis is a lot of times when we go into a company, they say we need a vision, we need a new strategy, we need to know where we're gonna go. And we don't start there. And why not start there? It's because everybody in the company, first of all, doesn't agree on where the company is. And how can, you know, if some people think we're here and some people think we're here, or we have these capabilities, or some think we have other capabilities, you can't even agree on where you are. How can you really agree on where we should go? And so what we start with is building agreement on what are our problems, what issues and challenges are we facing, and how are we going to deal with those? And we start with a group of up to 25 people. We put them together for 3 days, and at the end of 3 days, they've agreed, 25 people have agreed on absolutely everything, right? They've agreed on what all the problems are. They've agreed on these problems are structural, these are process, these are marketing problems, and all these different things, and they've agreed on a plan of action for how to move forward. Right? And so that's really where we start, and then we launch the plan of action on how are we going to solve those problems. And a lot of it is done collaboratively. We have methodology for what to do with those PIPs. You've heard them called tonight, or today. Some PIPs we pull out that can be solved by one person. You might have a PIP that says, our website hasn't been updated for 3 months. Right? So that's a potential improvement point. Maybe one person can do that. So we assign it. But there's other things that, you know, the company has, when you identify all of these PIPs, you saw 283 for Reciba. When you look at all of these PIPs, what you realize is that the company has had these problems for 1 or 2 or more years. And the PIPs are all controllable. Right? That's the definition of a PIP. It has to be something that's controllable, that we have control over. How can you have a problem that you have control over that you can't solve for 2 years or 3 years? And what we do is we just learn how to live with it. Right? It's like having a pain in your back and you don't go to the doctor, and you know, you just learn how to live with it, and you limp a little bit or whatever, but you know, it's okay. And so that's what we do with our companies, is we learn to live with these problems. And so what we do is we develop a plan of action. The 25 people agree on it, they launch it, and then we help them with problem-solving teams. It was working together, and we do it across functions. I was meeting at a company, a big company everybody knows, yesterday or the day before, and they said, the person we were meeting with said that our biggest problem right now is that we work in functional silos. Marketing doesn't talk to operations, operations doesn't talk to logistics, and on and on and on, right? They just work in their own departments, and there's no real collaboration. Only time they talk to each other is to yell at each other, to blame somebody for something, right? That's not a healthy company. And so when we start these problem-solving teams, the first thing we do is we look for a problem. These problems are all systemic, meaning, you know, a problem in marketing also affects other parts of the organization, and any solution you put in place is going to affect other parts of the organization. And so we look for who are the people that are the stakeholders in this problem, who is going to be affected by the solution. And then we put them together in a team to figure out what to do. And so you have people from different departments and different levels of hierarchy working together to solve an issue in, for instance, deliveries. And it's really interesting because, you know, I've worked with teams where we have frontline salespeople working with a CFO who they've never even really met before, but now they're sitting there telling the CFO how to solve problems. Right? And so for those salespeople, it's pretty motivating. And so this goes on and on and on. And this is a process we put in place that doesn't stop. It's problem solving. And then to control that process, to manage that process, we put in place a real structural unit that meets once a month, and their job is to manage the PIPs. Right? And Reciba said they had 283 PIPs. When you finish a Syndag, you launch 4 problem-solving teams. Right? What happens to the other 279 PIPs? Right? You put in place a council that meets once a month to manage the PIPs. So they get a report that one PIP's been taken care of, and then they form a new problem-solving team, right, from one of the other PIPs. And this goes on and on and on. So it's continuous problem-solving, which is really continuous improvement, continuous change. So it's built into the structure now, a structural unit whose responsibility is change, problem solving, development, and so on. Right? And after a few months, then we start to work on where are we going to go by developing a mission action plan. And a mission action plan is, it's done over a period of weeks with groups of people collecting information, and then they come together in a workshop and they identify, on 2 pages, they identify their mission action plan for the next 3 years, which basically says in those 2 pages, it says, we are this type of company, this is our purpose, this is the environment we're working in and how we see it changing over the next 3 years, and our mission is how are we going to respond to those changes? Right? Because those changes are both opportunities and threats. And so the mission action plan really is, what are we going to do over the next 3 years to take advantage of the opportunities and threats that we see coming up? And so there's specific actions. We're going to develop these new products. We're going to get rid of these products. We're going to move into new markets. We're going to develop different technologies. We have to develop different capabilities and skills and so on. And again, this is done with 3 layers of management, so that everybody agrees and they develop it themselves. It's not just the senior management team or even worse, just the CEO and a consultant developing a mission for the next, however long. Right? Too often you see mission statements that are a slogan. They go on a website, they're used for marketing, but there's no, nobody in the company knows what it is, except when they see it on a website. Right? So what we need to do is we need to get everybody together on where the company is, how do we solve the problems we currently have, and then together on where is it we're going to go. And then that mission action plan really is the basis for building a structure, because now we have an understanding of what we want to get done, what do we want to achieve, and we build a structure that will allow us to do that.